So it's my pleasure to welcome Chef Eric Adjepong, the host of Alex vs. America and the upcoming Wild Card Kitchen. He also appeared on Bravo's Top Chef and Top Chef All-Stars. He's the author of the children's book Sankofa, a culinary story of resilience and belonging, and the author of a forthcoming book called Ghana to the World. Please give him a huge round of applause.
Doing well.
Thank you so much for joining me here, Eric, and joining all of us and a big virtual crowd as well.
Hi, how's everyone doing? The last one, we got to get a little bit more energy. Hi, how's everyone doing?
Love it. So you mentioned on our call that you have a philosophy of know better, do better. Can you talk about how that applies in your daily life?
That has been instilled. That is like a family value, a lifestyle value that has been instilled in my family, really throughout the culture where I come from. It's the knowledge of, or it's really the wisdom, taking the knowledge and turning it into wisdom. And when you have certain responsibilities, i.e. in having a restaurant, and we're talking about the climate especially, it's very, very important to take onus on the role that that restaurant, you, the people, the food, all kind of play in that whole ecosystem. So it's really about always keeping my ear open, always being willing to change and adapt, and always looking to new practices as well, and fine-tuning the stuff that I'm doing right now.
Do you do any values-based work with your team? Like in terms of discussing what their values are, how that aligns with the business? Extremely.
That is like probably 101, the first day that any new hire comes in. For me, how I've been trained and kind of went through the ranks of the restaurant, but also how I like to see new kind of chefs and waiters and anyone who wants to work in the restaurant industry come in, is I want to know what you want to do. Like, what's your why? You're helping me achieve my goal, but how can I help you achieve yours? And there's so many different reasons why you may want to work in a restaurant. There's some people who truly have a passion for it, who want to go through the ranks and go through the rigor and put the 10,000 hours in and really kind of hone their skills. And there's some people who just want to get a check and pay their bills and make sure that their kids have food on the table. And I completely respect both sides of the field. So I want to be able to really genuinely have an authentic conversation with my employees, with the people who kind of are in the orbit of my restaurant, and want to know, your reasons why. So if there's anything that I can do, then, I have an immediate understanding. There's context as well.
So this takes us slightly away from climate, but I think leadership is so important because if you're a good leader, you're going to be leading your team through whatever challenges. So how do you lead a team that might have such different whys in terms of being there, from the paycheck to the values?
That's really on me. I think my why is the most important, and it comes to the restaurant and the ethos and the kind of like the mission statement of the restaurant. That is the ultimate why, and everyone needs to buy into that objectively. So I think when we have that sort of buy-in, there's a little bit of kind of relinquishment. You kind of take a little bit of self away. And I think that's truly the best part of a team, is when you can kind of take literally the I away and really realize that there's you're a part of the sum, and you're part of your cog in the machine, so to speak, is really turning the whole kind of industry and the whole restaurant and keeping things going and flowing. So really kind of being selfless in that aspect. And that's what I ask anyone who comes into the restaurant, regardless of your why. If you really want to kind of go through the ranks and follow me, or if you really just want to be able to kind of make ends meet, I ask you to just have a little bit of selflessness in the objective of the actual restaurant.
And this idea of selflessness is interesting. I mean, that ties it very nicely back to climate, because in terms of making any change, we do need to have a selfless attitude, right? And thinking especially of the indigenous ways of thinking 7 generations ahead, right? What you're doing today is not necessarily for you, it's for generation 7 generations ahead. Does that fit into your work at all, or this longevity element and the changes that you might be putting into place now that you might never see come to fruition?
Well, like a time capsule kind of thing? Maybe. I think subconsciously, yes. I think we all all have habits and practices and rituals and traditions that we do, maybe even what we're not even thinking about it, things that we've watched our parents do, or things, if we're speaking specifically in the restaurant, things that we watched our sous chef do that we do now, or things that we watch our general manager do that we do now. So there's kind of like that inherent sort of like practice that always happens, and you want to add a little bit of value to I guess my spin and my view at hospitality. For me, there's a chef out here, Farial, who we spoke about this very, very specifically about coming from West Africa and eating with your hands, right? The idea of eating with your hands, the actual visceral textile, or the visceral kind of like touch between having something hot, knowing something's hot, using your hands, that kind of like receptor. I'm not sure what it is, but you're pinging off from your hand to your brain that something's hot. You kind of know immediately how to handle it, versus having a spoon and having that sort of connection between your food and your mouth kind of stripped away, right, between that utensil. And that it's such a huge part of where I come from and how I grew up eating. Eating with my hands is very, very normal. It's very, very normal to my culture. I want to add that to the restaurant that I'm doing. Like, I think that's important. And ways that you can, someone mentioned earlier, teach, people, if they feel comfortable, it's not by force, but, welcome that. And if you're coming to my space and I'm welcoming to a space that, is West African themed and it comes through the music, it comes through the food, it comes through the experiences, it comes through the service, then that is very authentic to how we serve food. And I want you to experience that as you're eating my food. Yeah.
What are some of the stories that you tell through your food in a restaurant, beyond just the sheer deliciousness of the experience? What are some of the key things you want people to know?
Communalism is extremely important to me. That is just massive. I think the kinetic energy between the table is what I love to see. I love watching hands being kind of like passed around and sharing plates and really watching people enjoy a meal. Again, coming from West Africa, and it's not just an exclusive West African thing. It's a part of so many other cultures. But I've never remembered a memorable meal that I've had by myself. It's always with someone. And that aspect of communal eating is what I want to really, really, really push forward in the restaurant. Obviously, if you're a solo diner, you're more than welcome to come through.
Thank you.
You know that, but definitely, I think the full kind of robust experience of the restaurant will be felt when you have that sort of like kinetic flow at the table. Yeah.
So how does climate change mitigation fit into the new restaurants that you're going to tell us a little bit more about too?
So many ways. So this is my first project that I'm working completely 100% all in by myself. So there's a lot of, thank you. Cheers. So there's a lot behind the curtains that, as I opened 3 or 4 other restaurants that I just wasn't privy to see and kind of above my pay grade, so to speak. It's a lot, it's so much. Where to get material, the shipping, the freight, the packaging. Oh my gosh, the packaging. The packaging costs more than the actual item sometimes. And depending on where you're getting it from, how fast you need it, the wait times. There's almost like you're gauging it, right? You have a kind of a deadline, and you really want certain materials, or you really want a certain look, but sometimes you just may not have the time, or it just may not even be worth it because it's coming from literally the other side of the world, and you're like, okay, is it really worth kind of affecting freight and really what I'm doing to the climate to just have a nice kind of chandelier? Is it, is it really selfish? So that all of that kind of comes to play when I'm thinking about now, like the fixtures and everything else. But then the food aspect of it as well is very, very important to me. Like, the footprint, again, coming from like having a West African themed restaurant in Washington, D.C., it's completely different climates, not Africa at all. Like, how do I figure that out? There's so many different ways that I'm kind of like breaking that down and cutting that tree down, so to speak. So, yeah, it's a challenge, and it's always kind of like a Rubik's Cube to figure out.
Are there certain, I don't know if you heard me mention earlier the example of Thai chef who could not have access to cilantro root anymore. Are there examples like that? So maybe they were never even here, but in terms of ingredients that you cannot get, that cannot grow in DC, where you've had to adjust your menu?
Totally, for sure. So West African climate, in Ghana specifically, is very, it's hot. It's rainy maybe about 3 or 4 months out of the year, but for the most part, the produce that comes there is very, very specific. There's a lot of indigenous things like prekese and grains of selim and alligator pepper and sorghum leaves and sorghum itself, even specific rices, types of brands of rice that come from the area. So how do I kind of figure out a way to have authenticity in the restaurant while keeping true to some of these ingredients, but then I can be innovative as well and talk to different farmers, being able to speak with Tuckahoe Farm in Maryland and Glenberry Farm in Maryland as well about some of my kind of like problems, and they're helping me solve that by specifically kind of finding cowpeas and the seeds for cowpeas that only grow in West Africa and sourcing them for me, so I don't have to go and get them from West Africa. I can just go 45 minutes away, and that's absolutely like amazing. And the fact that they're doing that, it really builds a sense of community, because that's business that I'm always going to give, and that's business that they're always going to get.
Are there certain business models you create around that? So, for example, saying, all right, if you're planting this for me, I'm buying everything from you? Or like, what are some of the conversations you have?
It's helpful, yeah. JJ mentioned it earlier. Like, if you're going to a rice farmer and that rice farmer just so happens to have duck, then that's 2 for 2, right? So, like, if I can kind of, no pun intended, kill 2 birds with 1 stone in that regard, then that's a win for me, because then I'm cutting the freight, I'm cutting the shipping, right? We're shipping everything together. And again, it creates this really amazing relationship between a farmer and a restaurant that it's symbiotic. Like we end up needing each other in ways that like is really, really cool. And I respect his business, he respects mine, and we always look out for each other in that regard too. So if there's a deal, if there's anything, or even if I can call Charlie and like, hey, I got a great idea for some like a duck dish, load me up. Like, how much duck can you get me? And he's excited because now he's gonna feed a bunch of ducks and he's ready to go. Then that's a win. That's a win-win. Yeah.
This has been interesting in some of these climate roundtables I was mentioning. We're hearing a lot of chefs who are having much closer relationship with farmers than before, because it might mean you're getting the one case of the one ingredient that's being kept in the back for you because you have that relationship. Yeah. Do you have
100%. I know a farmer. I won't say the name because I'm keeping him close to me. But the location I may give away. He's from Bermuda. I love Bermuda. It's like a third home to me. And it's funny because I went maybe about two years ago when this happened, and there is so much abundance and bountifulness in the island. Their soil is just gorgeous. Like everything under the sun grows, and it grows so much, guys. Like people walk around like hibiscus, like it's like pigeons, you know what I mean? Like it's just like it's nothing. So it's crazy to think about. But there is a field of nasturtiums, this beautiful fresh floral leaf that you might see on garnishes or in a salad or anything like that. If I were to show a chef here in New York City that patch, they would give me $700 easily, like off the bat for that. And people are stepping on it in Bermuda. Like people are like walking on it. And this farmer saw an opportunity, harvest them, and he's selling them for an amazing number, and it's just kind of these really, really cool ways to utilize these incredible farmers that have these really cool, unique kind of like ingredients or ways to get certain things, and it's fun. It's kind of like the best way it's like the best kept secret, you know what I mean? You have a chef, another chef that you respect, they have a farmer and you're trying to get their, like, you're trying to get the plug and they're not telling you, and they're trying to get your plug but you're not telling them. So it's kind of like one of those things. Yeah.
Is this tougher? Is that environment just a little more closely guarded now?
No, I'm joking. People share. No, people share, and I think that's really the key and the hallmark for it all: passing information and spreading information. If I have an idea, or if I have a connection between a farmer and I know another restaurant or chef who may have a similar concept or maybe using similar ingredients, then it would be it would be a disservice for me to not pass that information over, honestly, because I would want that. Yeah.
Are there compromises that you make or you feel you have to make when you're creating menu or in whatever food you're serving?
Always. There's always compromises, 100%. I mean, that's the name of the game. I think the fun part is figuring out how to work around it and still provide an authenticity, still be true to yourself, and understand that sometimes tomatoes could be dry in one season, or the plantains that I wanted to be green came in yellow, and I got to figure it out today. So there's so many different ways, but truly the name, and honestly, your best restaurants, some of your favorite restaurants in the city or wherever you go, play this exercise every single day, and they just do it with a smile, and you don't notice. They're getting food, they're getting shipments that that they thought it was one thing, it's probably something else, or it's a different cut of beef, or it's a different protein in general. I've seen that before. You can send it, or you can figure out a way to make it special and make it delicious and truly not make an excuse out of it. So that's my mindset, unless it's completely just an atrocious error, then I'm going to figure it out. Yeah.
Well, in the previous panel talked a little bit about all the challenges around getting diners to really understand what's happening and the realities of running restaurants these days, right? We have a lot of diners here. So what would you like to tell people about the realities of eating out at this point?
The realities of eating out. I'm a diner too. I love eating out. I'm a diner at heart. I think we got to give credit to diners as well, a little bit more. I think diners are very, very educated about what they want, how they want it, who they want to go to for it, and that type of I guess balance on the scale really puts the other kind of weight, or at least tips the scale for the chefs and the restaurateurs to really be honest about what they're doing and their service and how they're getting their food and where they're sourcing it from. And I think that's sort of honesty and keeping a true balance between a really pivotal relationship, because restaurants want you to keep coming in for your milestone weddings and your birthdays and your graduations and every other reason why you want to celebrate. And you want to go to a restaurant because the food is safe, it's coming from places that you respect and honor, and you're going to enjoy your time, you're going to have a really great experience. So there's a true kind of honor system between that, and that to me is really the genesis of a great relationship in a restaurant, especially a community restaurant, a place, a go-to spot, and one that you can go to maybe once or twice a week. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, and that trust between the chef and the diner is something that we talk a lot about at the foundation. And obviously, that's what makes chefs so powerful and why your voice is trusted by diners, by lawmakers, by media, because you're feeding us and you can make us happy and alive, or you can kill us pretty much just as easily.
That's dramatic. No, we don't want to kill you. No, we don't want to kill you. But no, that crazy enough with I guess with great power comes that great responsibility, right? Shout out to Peter Parker. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think you really have to have, and that's the kind of the onus, the responsibility that I take when I see anyone come into any restaurant that I have is, you're taking the time out. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here right now, kind of vibe. And I really appreciate that. And we're going to honor and make sure you have a great time, for as long as you're there. Yeah.
What's one thing that you wish more restaurants did when it comes to climate mitigation?
Composting. Brian mentioned it. Composting is massive. Also, I think more plant-based, focused things on the menu, whether it's incompletely, whether it's a complete kind of takeover, whether it's a heavy focus on your menu. You'll notice so many things. Your cost go down. almost immediately. You'll notice labor goes down almost immediately as well. It doesn't take long to braise. Vegetables. It doesn't take long to cook certain things that are coming from the ground. And there's a true beauty in just celebrating seasonality as well when it comes to vegetables. So like, load it up. People like that. Just a great way to just beef up your menu. No pun intended. Cheese. to bulk up your menu, but then also really just show the amazing kind of seasonality of where you're at. And then composting. Composting is massive. If you can find a way to make a system out of that, and there's so many different ways. I think Brian mentioned it as well. The kind of like cyclical relationship between the composting, the farmer, the mushrooms, buying back the mushrooms, and then using it again in the restaurant. That's amazing. And to see that kind of like circulation of dollars, but then also like waste, come back in money. It's pretty cool. So I would say two things like that. I would definitely subscribe to. But yeah.
And you have a cookbook coming out in March. Can we look for a lot of veggie recipes there?
For sure. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Nice plug. So I have a cookbook coming out next March, Ghana to the World. And absolutely, there's going to be a whole bunch of vegetable-forward dishes. Ghana inherently is just a very veggie-focused kind of like cuisine, and the Ghanaian cuisine, rather. And I'm excited to celebrate that. And there's so many different ways, to break down. There's a lot of traditional recipes, but we, in the recipe book, there's different ways to kind of pivot and use different ingredients if you don't have, I don't know, cowpeas at hand, or if you don't have sorghum leaves at hand. We find different ways to make it work. But it's a very exciting book, 4 years in the making. Geez, I say I will do it again. I probably won't.
You will.
Yeah, I know. I probably will. But no, it's a labor of love, written with Portia Wilson as well. So super excited to share that with the world.
Wonderful. Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Everyone, go visit Eric in DC and buy his cookbook.
Appreciate it.